I was chasing four backers across the great Midwest, just where they were headed was anyone's guess. But the road kept on winding, leading wherever it goes. And how this will all come out, well, nobody knows. Sometimes you gotta drive with no destination in mind, and where you end up, it's just a matter of time.
It's hard to know exactly where to begin this tale I'm about to unwind. There were so many characters in play, so many perspectives to take into account. Little moments that passed by in the blink of an eye that didn't seem important at the time, but looking back conspired to set the whole thing in motion. But since I'm the one telling the story, and I'm the one who had the camera, I guess it falls on me to get it going. One thing is certain. This guy, Kent Lewis, was at the center of it all. It was his dream that set it all in motion, although the dreams of the other 12 had something to do with it too. But I'm getting ahead of myself, so let me pick a place to start. I'd been playing around at bars and restaurants for a couple of years, but I was getting bored doing covers of Dylan, Paul Simon, and the Beatles. So on the last Wednesday night of September 2018, I stuck my neck out at the Island Tap in Libertyville and played some of my songs. I didn't get much of a response, but one guy, Randy Thompson, came up to me after the set and said, "Man, you got to do that more often." And he told me about a new place that he thought I should check out. So the next Tuesday, October 2nd, I carried my Martin into Lucky Bernie's in Mundelein, Illinois to play at an open mic. I didn't know anyone there other than Randy, didn't know what to expect. Kent Lewis was the host, and as soon as he saw me walk in, he said, "Welcome, brother. What's your name?" Now, Kent is a character. Long graying hair, Harley-Davidson t-shirt, and a little wild-eyed. You could say he's the kind of guy who fills up a room. So I did my set of originals, and when I was done, Kent approached and said, "Oh man, that was awesome." Randy slid over and said, "See? What'd I tell you?" Well, that was all it took. And nearly every Tuesday night since then, I've made my way to Lucky Bernie's and rolled out my music, doing my best to comfort the afflicted and afflict the comfortable. Along the way, I've made friends with a couple dozen other musicians, especially Randy. He's just about the best guitar player I've ever known.
Yes, city, here in limbo, but I know it won't be long.
Sometime last spring, Kent started floating this idea of a motorcycle tour. A bunch of us players hitting bars in various towns in the Midwest. And each week he'd press the issue. "Yeah, we're going to play Galena, Illinois, then LaCrosse, Wisconsin, then Wausau, maybe Kenosha." Turns out that Kent's wife, Lori, was at the heart of the idea, pushing him to get some use out of his Harley rather than just parking it in the garage. At first, I didn't think too much about it, not having a motorcycle myself, but he said I could drive the equipment van, and I started to get interested. Over time, the idea of Rockin Ride began to take shape. Then, out of nowhere in June, tragedy struck, and Lori passed away unexpectedly.
Cut you right down to the bone, left you staring
at the morning sky. I'm a firm believer that real relationships are born out of hard times, and a hard time it surely was. Anyway, after that, I figured I wanted to go along on the tour if for no other reason than to support Kent. So it was that on the morning of August 12th, 10 of us met up in the parking lot of Crossroads Restaurant in Ivanhoe to set off on an adventure. Kent, Randy and Deb, Terry, Ray, Kevin and Jay, our stylist Kathy, Lenny, and me. It was only 10 in the morning, but some of the crew had already managed to hit the bar in order to grease the wheels, so to speak, and to plan the first leg of the journey. It should be noted that I was not only the oldest member of the band, but the shortest, too.
Short people got no reason to live.
We rolled out of that parking lot a little after 10, heading west toward Galena, where we'd meet up with Roger and Trudy at the Rafters restaurant. Now, it's important to note that with that many people in a convoy, it was necessary to make a stop or two along the way, to use the facilities and to further grease the wheels. So the first stop was a little bar in some small town in northern Illinois. Duly emptied and refilled, we continued on west to the Rafters for lunch. Along the way, it started to pour, and the bikers had to put on their rain gear. And when we got to the restaurant, they were more than happy to head indoors. Those of us in cars were feeling pretty pleased with ourselves. Next stop was at what Kent called the overflow house, where the second story was pulling away from the rest of the building. But man, what a view. We had to wait there for a while till we could get into the house where we'd spend the night, out in the middle of nowhere some miles from Galena. It was a fine big log home, big enough to accommodate all 12 of us, although Lenny and I got stuck sleeping on air mattresses, while the others enjoyed real beds. So it goes. The first gig was at the Cornerstone Bar in downtown Galena. Now, by the time we were set up and ready to play, it was raining steady and downtown was pretty much deserted. But there were a few lost souls sitting at the bar ready to listen to what we had. Perhaps the highlight of that first night was the closed-circuit security camera system that broadcast the entire performance on TV.
Just like children sleeping, we can dream this night away. But there's a full moon rising, let's go dancing in the light. We know where the music's playing, let's go out and feel the night. Because I'm still in love with you, I want to see you dance again. Because I'm still in love with you. Oh, on this harvest moon, when we were strangers, I watched you from afar. When we were lovers, I love you with all my heart. I wanna celebrate. See it shining in your eyes. Because I'm still in love with you. I wanna see you dance again. Because I'm still in love with you. Oh, on this.
So when I first heard about this Rockin' Ride, I figured motorcycles, guitars, alcohol, what possibly could go wrong? So I thought, no, these guys are nuts. There's no way I'm going. Then I thought about it and I said, you know, once again, this is something totally out of my comfort zone. So Jay and I were sitting up in Minocqua on the porch. And I said, you know what those idiots are doing back at Bernie's? I said, they're going on this Rockin' Ride. 3 cities, open mic. And she said, that sounds great. Are we going? Doomed. Doomed. So I texted Kent and I said, okay, you know, we're in. We're in. So actually, I guess I just kind of went because it's kind of like seeing a train wreck. You want to see what's happened, and you want to be part of it.
Because I'm still in love with you. I wanna see you dance again. Because I'm still in love with you. Oh, on this harvest moon. Harvest moon. Wish I was in Austin, at the Chili Parlor bar, drinking Mad Dog margaritas, not caring where you are. I sit here in Dublin, rolling cigarettes, holding back and choking back the shakes with every breath. So forgive me all my anger, forgive me all my faults. No need to forgive me for thinking what I thought. Loved you on the get-go and I love you till I die. Loved you on the Spanish Steps the day you said goodbye. I'm just a poor boy, work's my middle name. If money was the reason, I would not feel the same. I'll stand up and be
It was late when we got back to the log house and I was whipped. But everybody else seemed hyped up from the excitement of the first gig. There was a lot of chatter and tequila. Didn't keep me from falling asleep, though. You have to pace yourself when you're on an epic journey. Sometime around 6 the next morning, Kevin was the first up, rustling around in the kitchen making coffee. The rain had finally stopped and the outside world was covered in fog. Finally, by 9:30, everyone was awake and ready to head out for breakfast. We found a little cafe in Galena and Randy splurged on a $3 bottle of champagne so that we could have mimosas with our grub. While we were eating, the sun broke through the clouds and the bikers were in a better mood. We were all about to hit the road again when someone noticed that Kevin was missing. Thus began what became a familiar chant. Where's Kevin? Randy worried that we'd left him behind at the log house. Ray thought that maybe we'd lost him on the road somewhere, but Jay assured us he was in the bathroom again. When Kevin finally caught up with us, it was time to head north for that night's gig in LaCrosse. The bikers led the way along the winding roads beside the Mississippi River. Before long, we left Illinois behind and meandered through back roads of southeastern Iowa. An hour or two into the drive, it was time to make a pit stop. Kent pulled over at a little Mexican restaurant. Several of the crew were disheartened when they realized there was no bar in the joint, but the restrooms are clean, so nobody complained too much. We headed back onto the road for another couple hours, veered into Wisconsin, and came to the Swing Inn, nestled against the Mississippi River. It was there that we saw our first Moon Man sign, which we took to be a good omen. Initially, the plan was to have a beer, or in some cases a shot or two, and then keep moving. But Randy was in the mood for beef stroganoff, so he asked for a menu. Alas, stroganoff was not listed, so he opted for cheese curds and a burger. That inspired everyone else to various concoctions. The quick stop turned into an hour and a half, and finally it was time to mount up and head to the next house. But just as we were about to leave, someone noticed that Kevin was missing in action again. "Where's Kevin?" echoed throughout the bar. Now, Roger had a GPS in his van, so we elected him to be the leader of the pack. The ride was scenic and uneventful. It took a while to find the address of the house where we were staying that night, and the gravel road leading up to it was marked with no trespassing signs and a precarious 45-degree angle grade. I was following close behind Roger as he led the way toward the house. About halfway up, for reasons unknown, Roger stopped in the middle of the road, perhaps daunted by the no trespassing sign. Not wanting to run into him, I stopped my car and then glanced in the rearview mirror just in time to see Ray and Lenny's motorcycles topple over in the loose gravel. It was not a pretty sight. So there we were, 4 motorcycles, 1 van, 1 car, 1 SUV, and 1 big-ass Ford Expedition all stuck on the side of a mountain. A quick meeting was held, and Roger was voted out as leader of the pack. Then the owner of the house showed up in a 4-wheel vehicle and towed Roger's van up to the house. One by one, all the non-motorcycles made it to the top of the gravel road, and eventually the bikes were uprighted and walked back down to the bottom. This proved to be a task requiring much physical exertion, and by the time we were all assembled in the hill house, some of the crew were exhausted and overheated. So much so that at 4:15 on August 13th, I did in fact see Randy eschew a glass of tequila for several glasses of ice water. Never thought I'd live to see that. Anyway, it turned out that the hill house was spectacular. Being on top of a mountain that had a fabulous view and enough beds so that everyone, although I was stuck in a top bunk above Lenny, everyone had a bed. The rest of the afternoon was spent in consumption of various libations and snacks, and eventually Randy was able to drink his glass of tequila, although he continued to look curiously red and wiped out. There was some passing discussion of the merits of blowing off that night's performance in LaCrosse, but eventually it was decided that that would be unprofessional. So we loaded up the vehicles, made the treacherous descent down the gravel road, and headed to the dive bar, now called Fathead Steve's, for our second night of performance. Unlike the Cornerstone in Galena, Steve's joint was in a down-on-its-luck strip mall on the outskirts of LaCrosse. I personally believe the building had once housed an odd lot store or maybe a Dollar General, but there's no way to confirm this. It was a big place. You could have fit several lanes of a bowling alley in it, and they had a nice, rickety stage. We set up the PA equipment and went to work. The crowd was okay. Not huge, but more people than the Cornerstone. And the highlight was that the owner gave us 3 pizzas at no charge.
Hello, lamppost, what you knowin'? Come to watch your flowers growin'. Ain't you got no rhymes for me? Do, feelin' groovy. Ba-da-da-da-da-da-da, feeling groovy. I got no deeds to do, no promises to keep. I'm dapple and drowsy and ready to sleep. Let the morning time drop all its petals on me. Life, I love you, all is groovy. Feeling groovy.
So we did our thing, and for the first time, Randy did an entire solo set, and he sat in with Kevin for a few songs. When Kent introduced them, he named their band, Where's Kevin? One guy in the audience, some suspected he was a serial killer hiding out, said that we were all really groovy.
Groovy, you have to be groovy.
So why'd you want to go?
Well, to tell you the truth, Bruce, I didn't think this was ever going to happen. I was approached by Kent to do a open mic on the road with motorcycles, and I immediately knew that this would never, ever happen. So I've always tried to be positive and said, all right, I'll go ahead and do it, knowing full well that this is never going to happen. How are you ever going to get all of the PA system on a motorcycle? Where are we going to put the guitars? What in the hell are we talking about? Well, as soon as I say, yeah, I'll go ahead and do this, Ken immediately goes over to the other tables and starts telling them that I am going to be involved in all this stuff. So then they all want to be involved because they don't want to be left out. So now, then I got 10 people that are going to go, and I'm shaking my head going, oh my God, what have I just committed myself to do? Sometimes it just happens that the best things were never supposed to be.
Fearless leader, are you having fun?
We are having a blast. How about all you guys out there? You having fun? Thank you, Bruce, for making this happen today after our little excursion on a hill. Well, up and down.
We played till around 11 that night and then headed back to the Hill House. Amazingly, now being educated about the treacherous gravel road and no longer allowing Roger to lead us, everyone made it back to the house without incident. On a down note, Lenny's motorcycle fall had wrenched his back and he was clearly suffering. Deb came to his rescue with a tin of Tiger Balm, and we all settled into post-performance discussions and song sharing till well into the early morning hours.
When I heard about Kent's plan to do the road trip with the open mic, I thought it would be a fun time playing music with all the open mic crowd for a few days. And I'm always up for a longer ride on the Harleys, which sounded like fun as well. I also felt it was a great way to support our buddy Kent after what he's been through recently.
The next morning, Kathy had to leave to go back to the real world. But before she left, she organized a video session singing Happy Birthday to Amanda. Amanda had originally planned to come on the trip, but she was detained by the FBI because her boss in Chicago had been accused of squandering a couple $1 million. Yet another story. After we sang to her and posted the birthday wishes on Facebook, it was time to head to breakfast. We found a little cafe in New Albin, Iowa, situated beside an outreach center for the Way International, a fundamentalist Christian militia organization with which I am all too familiar. We pushed all but one of their tables together so everyone could eat as a group. The one table left over was occupied by 3 senior citizen ladies who seemed to know everything about everyone in that small town. When one of our crew asked them about this, they informed us that they were just nosy and bored. Over breakfast, I entertained my end of the table with a story of how I was once in a serious car accident in which my mother's '68 Chevelle was broadsided by a semi-truck owned by the WI International. Rumor has it that it is subsequently developed into a 26-acre fenced-in compound and is loaded up with well-armed Christians. Perhaps this too, like the Moon Man sign, was an omen of things to come. When breakfast was over, we all loaded up, even Kevin, for our next stop, Wausau, Wisconsin. The drive to Wausau was uneventful until we came to our last house. It was a lovely home overlooking a beautiful lake. There was just one problem, though. The entry code that we'd been given did not work. So we sat around a while Randy called the owner, who said he'd be right over to give us the proper code. While we were waiting, we noticed there were a number of Bible verses inscribed into the foundation of the house. This gave us an uneasy feeling, so much so that Kent decided he'd better hide out in the van so he didn't scare off the owner, given that he was wearing a "Will Work for Weed" t-shirt. I guess he figured that 4 Harleys would be enough trepidation for someone with Bible quotes inscribed in his foundation. The rest of us elected Lenny to be our spokesman, Lenny being the most normal-looking member of the tribe. Well, the owner arrived and let us in. Now the house was immaculate and very tastefully decorated, with one exception. Almost everywhere you looked, there were framed Bible quotes and inspirational sayings. Just a little odd. And there was a book with the house rules, 22 of them. Prominent among these were, "There shall be no alcoholic beverages in the house. There shall be no smoking. There shall be no changing of clothes outdoors," and on and on. Whose idea was this? Randy's. I dubbed this as the Christian Hotel from Hell, and the name stuck. When the owner left, there was a brief discussion of going somewhere for dinner, but Jay had made chili and had been keeping it frozen in a cooler, so we decided we'd better heat that up and not let it go to waste. I made cornbread muffins and we had some snacks, so that became our last supper. I confess I snuck in a beer while everyone else drank water. I just couldn't abide eating chili without a beer. As soon as the last supper was over, it was time to head to Malarkey's to set up for our last gig. Somehow, Ray had managed to fall asleep, sitting up on the couch with his hands behind his head. What a talent. As luck would have it, just across the street from Malarkey's, there is a huge park, and there was a festival going on when we arrived. Thousands of people were there, and the band that was playing was pretty good. Not a bad warm-up act for us. Not bad at all. Malarkey's turned out to have a great sound system, cool stage, and psychedelic lighting system. Kent and Randy kicked off the night with a great set, followed by Ray, who played the set of his life. Next up was Lenny and Randy, a.k.a. Nosy and Bored. And Randy and I were next, Moon the Man, followed by Roger going solo. Then Kent and Randy again. Then Randy went solo, as if he hadn't already played enough.
That Louise was not half bad. It was written on the walls of window shades. And though she'd act a little girl, a deceiver, don't believe her, that's her trade. Sometimes a bottle of perfume, flowers and maybe some lace. Men brought Louise tents and trinkets. Their intentions were easily traced. Everybody knew At times she cried. Ah, but women like Louise, they get by.
Randy and Debbie invited me to join them on the Rockin Ride road trip. I was intimidated. 4 days and 3 nights with a bunch of musicians on motorcycles? Debbie assured me that it is indeed fun to ride a motorcycle. Would I die in a fiery crash in the middle of Wisconsin? Is there any possibility this might be the most fun I've ever had in my life?
Everybody thought it kinda sad when they found Louise in her room. They'd always put her down below their kind. Still some cried when she died this afternoon. Louise rode home.
Welcome to Wausau.
Everyone brought their A game. It was like the other 2 nights had just been rehearsals for the big show. After my set, the owner told me there was someone in the crowd who knew me. Turned out to be a music producer who'd seen me play in Columbus, Ohio in the mid-1980s. Small world. None of us wanted to go back to the Christian hotel, so we played our rotation 2 more times and didn't leave until 1:30 or so in the morning. Closing time. As we gathered in the parking lot after the show, Kent pulled us into a small circle and said, "My dad always told me that you should never miss an opportunity to tell someone that you love them. I love you all." Kent headed out with an old friend of his, and the rest of us went back to the Christian Hotel from a hell, and essentially our tour of the great Midwest was at its end. I'm not exactly sure what to make of this whole thing. I think that each of us, the players and the others who came along, we're in our separate ways looking for something. For some, it was an adventure. For others, a risky vacation. For some, it was validation, the joy of playing music. For others, it was healing, friendship, something about love. Whatever.
Took a rockin' ride around the bend. Just a little trip with a few new friends. Gonna meet at the cornerstone, where no one has to sing alone. Oh, where's Kevin? How nice to have him near. And what about the moon man, singing eagle songs we can't hear? Get a running start and don't you stop. Keep the throttle on until the top. This is no place to lock your wheel. You know this road won't hold your steel.
When the idea of this open mic ride came up, I thought it sounded like a lot of fun. I knew that some of the people, respected them, know they're smart, knew they'd find something great for us to do, and what an opportunity to have a party.
Sometimes you gotta drive with no destination in mind. Where you end up is just just a matter of time. It was clear I'm the oldest by a couple of years. You can't measure the journey in inches of memories or fears. Just follow the taillights and the cloud of dust, haunted by ghosts of the past, living on trust. Sometimes you gotta drive with no destination in mind. Where you end up is just a matter of time. Where